history, John. There's no better way to help people than a J-O-B, and I believe in that, and this is why today is such an important day. We're going to be helping the employers of Illinois, the workers of Illinois, all of those who are committed to economic growth by signing a law that will help our employers in Illinois reduce their premiums for workers' compensation insurance by a huge amount. $500 million. That's about $500 million we estimate at least will be saved here by employers like Navistar and then smaller companies that we may not know their names today, but they can grow if we help them have a good business climate in Illinois. This was all about teamwork, and that's what we believe in Illinois, collaborating and cooperating and working as a team, labor and business. We salute the United Auto Workers, one of the greatest unions in our whole country. They know how to work and work hard and do a good job and produce products that the world wants. And we want to make sure if there is an injury to a worker, they get a proper compensation and they get it swiftly and promptly and fairly. And we want to make sure that those who minister to all of us in the healthcare profession, hospitals and healthcare providers, we want to make sure they get adequately compensated, but not more than what is fair. So what we did in this bill is we had to work together on it for a long time.
The governor alluded to the importance of American-made products. That is very, very important for this plant, very, very important for our country, because our country today is involved in cutthroat competition on a global basis. And for this plant, for you workers, for workers all across the country, and for the entire country to prosper, we need good, solid work which is being done at this plant. So thank you very, very much.
I can tell you that when this process started, I didn't know a whole lot about workers' comp. I spent a lot of time learning about it, and I now know more than I ever wanted to know, but I recognize that I'm not an expert yet. But the other thing I learned is why it's so difficult to change this system that had become so dysfunctional for our state, not only for the injured workers, but also for the employers that were paying very, very high premiums. So that's why today is a real cause for celebration, that we actually were able to come together to create a bill that will make a difference. Is it a perfect bill? Probably not. I think every single participant in this process would tell you there are a few other things they wished had been in this bill. And we will continue to monitor the progress of the workers' comp system here in Illinois. First and foremost, that our workers are protected, and secondly, that our workers' comp premiums do not make us non-competitive with other states.
I thought I knew enough about workers' compensation when I worked as a workers' compensation lawyer defending Cook County. I learned a lot more about it as I spent hours and hours in the room with John Bradley and Greg Bass and Dave Veit and John Carpenter. But one of the things I do remember from when I was a workers' compensation defense lawyer was the case of a woman who bragged about building a Wisconsin home off of her workers' compensation cases. And as I think of that woman, I think of somebody who disadvantaged her fellow employees, because as there are abuses in a system that is meant to protect workers, honest workers, if there is a worker who will abuse it, it impacts other workers because it lessens the amount of jobs we will have in the state of Illinois. It'll lessen the ability for an employer to invest in the protections for their employees. And as we took on this measure, we thought about that. We thought about keeping a great company like Navistar in the state of Illinois and keeping all the jobs in the state of Illinois. And it was not an easy process. And as Leader Radonio indicated, the bill was far from perfect, but we were not going to let the perfect be the enemy of the good. This is a major reform. As indicated, it'll save between $500 and $700 million, maybe in excess of that. But almost as important as the dollar savings is a changing of the culture at the Illinois Industrial Commission, and the message that will be sent out that this system is meant to protect legitimately injured workers and not to invite abuses.
When we started this process, I had two things going through my mind. I remembered my great-grandfather, who was a coal miner, who was crushed by a boulder underground. And he didn't get workers' comp. He didn't get any remedy. And then I also remember growing up and watching the coal mines and the factories of Southern Illinois, Maytag, Norge, close, shut down, leave our state. And so our goal was to create a piece of legislation which would continue to protect injured workers, so that people like my great-grandfather that were injured working would be able to get fair compensation. But at the same time, to give our businesses relief so that they could be competitive in a global market, so that people like my great-grandfather and my aunts and my uncles and our families throughout the state could continue to have decent paying jobs in the state of Illinois. And so we sat down with labor and business, with various groups from around the state, and we listened and we worked together and we came up with a compromise piece of legislation. And at the end of the day, we had everybody a little bit aggravated, which I think is generally a pretty good sign that you got pretty close to where you need to be. Hundreds of millions of dollars of savings, the protection of legitimately injured workers, and moving the ball forward for the economy of the state of Illinois.
All of us can take a great deal of pride in the passage of this law. This year, we've been able to do some great things. We reformed our education system, and I signed that a couple of weeks ago over in Maywood. Now here we are in Melrose Park signing a historic legislation that will save our employers and our businesses in Illinois a great deal of money to allow us to continue our economic recovery. We've got to get our economy back on track. Navistar is leading the way. Navistar is an Illinois company. I grew up near the old International Harvester. I believe in the people of Navistar. I believe in the workers of Illinois and the businesses of Illinois. Together we're going to make the will of the people the law of the land.